This is our life with bees. And this is our life without bees. Bees are the most important pollinators of our fruits and vegetables and flowers and crops like alfalfa hay that feed our farm animals. More than 1/3 of the world's crop production is dependent on bee pollination. But the ironic thing is that bees are not out there pollinating. In parts of the world where there are no bees, or where they plant varieties that are not attractive to bees, people are paid to do the business of pollination by hand. These people are moving pollen from flower to flower with a paintbrush. Now, this business of hand pollination is actually not that.
Getting started. Marla, thanks for coming. Tell me, what makes honeybees such a special organism?
Honeybees can be considered a superorganism, where the colony is the organism, and it's comprised of 40 to 50,000 individual bee organisms. Now, this society has no central authority. Nobody's in charge. So how they come to collective decisions and how they allocate their tasks and divide their labor, how they communicate where the flowers are, all of their collective social behaviors are mind-blowing.
Is it going to come out and be able to fly? Or
no, they won't fly. They won't fly for the first few days. So they kind of rotate through jobs. So when they first come out, they'll be nurse bees. They're taking care of other larvae. They move through things. There's like guard bees at the front door, more, what do they call them? Ones that actually take dead bees out of the hive.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so, sorry.
So bees have social health care. So in my lab, we study how bees keep themselves healthy. For example, we study hygiene, where some bees are able to locate and weed out sick individuals from the nest, from the colony, and keeps the colony healthy.
So along with the bee hygiene, do they have their own defenses, or are they just vulnerable out there?
More recently, we've been studying resins that bees collect from plants. So bees fly to some plants and they scrape these very, very sticky resins off the leaves, and they take them back to the nest where they cement them into the nest architecture, where we call it propolis.
All of this is kind of reddish stuff. I did that twice already. Is propolis. What were they talking about with propolis?
Antibacterial.
Oh, nice.
What were they talking about on the movie?
Yeah.
I forget what they were saying.
They were saying don't they like scrape it off? They scrape this like substance off the leaves.
Yep, the resins.
Take it back.
Yeah, and they will stick anything together. So every time I'm in here, I have to break the frames apart because they're covered in propolis. But they'll also use it as
just a snapshot.
as Matt was mentioning, for some of the antibiotic properties. So they can actually, like if a mouse crawled in there and they killed it, they would then just coat it in propolis.
Propolis, that's interesting. I've never actually heard of that. So why propolis? Why nothing else?
We found that propolis is a natural disinfectant. It's a natural antibiotic. It kills off bacteria and molds and other germs within the colony, and so it bolsters the colony health and their social immunity.
So bees have this great system, this great community. So then why are they dying? What's the issue?
Bees are dying from multiple and interacting causes, and I'll go through each of these.
Okay.
The bottom line is, bees dying reflects a flowerless landscape and a dysfunctional food system. Now, we have the best data on honeybees, so I'll use them as an example. In the United States, bees, in fact, have been in decline since World War II. We have half the number of managed hives in the United States now compared to 1945. We're down to about 2 million hives of bees, we think. And the reason is, after World War II, we changed our farming practices. We stopped planting cover crops. We stopped planting clover and alfalfa, which are natural fertilizers that fix nitrogen in the soil. And instead, we started using synthetic fertilizers. Clover and alfalfa are highly nutritious food plants for bees.
So you're saying that all this is coming from the fact that just because we took away the cover crops from them, all the bees are dying?
And after World War II, we started using herbicides to kill off the weeds in our farms. Many of these weeds are flowering plants that bees require for their survival. And we started growing larger and larger crop monocultures. Now, we talk about food deserts, places in our cities, neighborhoods that have no grocery stores. The very farms that used to sustain bees are now agricultural food deserts dominated by 1 or 2 plant species like corn and soybeans. Since World War II, we have been systematically eliminating many of the flowering plants that bees need for their survival. And these monocultures extend even to crops that are good for bees, like almonds. 50 years ago, beekeepers would take a few colonies, hives of bees, into the almond orchards for pollination, and also because the pollen in an almond blossom is really high in protein. It's really good for bees.
All right, so we're starting to paint a picture here. So we have the removal of the cover crops and we have herbicides. That all is starting to make sense.
And then there's pesticides.
Well, of course. So herbicides and pesticides. So why both of them? What's going on? What caused that issue?
After World War II, we started using pesticides on a large scale, and this became necessary because of the monocultures that put out a feast for crop pests. Recently, researchers from Penn State University have started looking at the pesticide residue in the loads of pollen that bees carry home as food. And they've found that every batch of pollen that a honeybee collects has at least 6 detectable pesticides in it. And this includes every class of insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and even inert and unlabeled ingredients that are part of the pesticide formulation that can be more toxic than the active ingredient. This small bee is holding up a large mirror. How much is it going to take?
So to recap a little bit, we have pesticides, herbicides, monoculture, and all this is only affecting honeybees. Is that correct?
All of our beautiful wild species of bees are at risk, including those tomato pollinating bumblebees. These bees are providing backup for our honeybees. They're providing the pollination insurance alongside our honeybees. We need all of our bees.
So for many people out there, including myself, who want to help, who want to contribute, where will we plant? How can we help out?
Plant them in a pot on your doorstep. Plant them in your front yard, in your lawns, in your boulevards. Campaign to have them planted in public gardens, community spaces, meadows. Set aside farmland. We need a beautiful diversity of flowers that blooms over the entire growing season from spring to fall. We need roadsides seeded in flowers for our bees, but also for migrating butterflies and birds and other wildlife. And we need to think carefully about putting back in cover crops to nourish our soil and nourish our bees. And we need to diversify our farms. We need to plant flowering crop borders and hedgerows to disrupt the agricultural food desert and begin to correct the dysfunctional food system that we've created. So maybe it seems like a really small countermeasure to a big, huge problem, just go plant flowers. But when bees have access to good nutrition, we have access to good nutrition through their pollination services. And when bees have access to good nutrition, they're better able to engage their own natural defenses, their health care that they've relied on for millions of years.
Marla, this has been a really beautiful interview. I really appreciate you coming. I want to leave with one last thing. Backstage, you mentioned that there were lots of beauty in all this. Would you care to elaborate on that for us all?
So, the beauty of helping bees this way for me is that every one of us needs to behave a little bit more like a bee society, an insect society, where each of our individual actions can contribute to a grand solution, an emergent property that's much greater than the mere sum of our individual actions. So let the small act of planting flowers and keeping them free of pesticides be the driver of large-scale change. On behalf of the bees, thank you.